Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Whether you're tuning in on the radio dial here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM, we welcome you all back to our program. Also, those tuning in through our online affiliates around the world, we're glad to have all of you with us as well. I am really excited to welcome back to our program today best-selling author and motivational speaker David Essel. He's written a great new book called Focus, Slay Your Goals, The Proven Guide to Huge Success, A Powerful Attitude, and Profound Love. We're going to talk to David not only about the response already to this book, but also what it's been like for him to dedicate himself to work that he loves, but also is helping people literally around the world. Now, if you're just hearing about the book Focus, we'll tell you at the end of our segment how you can be able to get your own copy of it. But David, hello to you and welcome back to the program.
Oh, Cyrus, great to be with you again. Yes, and I'm excited to go through all these questions you might have.
Well, look, David, I want to start off by talking about the response. I mean, the thing that I think is so great about you is that you are not afraid to stir things up a bit, but also to get people thinking about themselves, thinking about where they are, but more importantly, how they're going to get to where they say they want to go. I mean, what has it been like for you to be a part of that conversation?
Well, it's been really fascinating. You know, the last couple of books that I've written, I've actually called myself out, Cyrus, with my past teachings that went along with a lot of motivational people in the world, talking about how your thoughts become things and what you think about, you bring about those cute little sayings. And, I've walked out on the edge and said, it's not true. So what I used to teach from 1980 to 1996, whatever you believe you can achieve, and now I'm walking backwards and saying, I am so sorry that I've misled you, because what we see with all the examples in our brand new book, Focus, Slay Your Goals, the examples from our last number one bestseller, Positive, Think You Will Never Change Your Life, Cyrus says that we've got to take a time out. Mass consciousness is a very good and a very scary thing. So, right. And what mass consciousness means is that, when you get a huge amount of people behind a movement that may not be accurate, that's where I fell victim to my gurus and my teachers early in my career. I just repeated statements about how to be successful that weren't true, Cyrus. And now I'm backing up and saying, okay, let's look at the reality of success versus this way too easy, too good to be true philosophies that so many people are still teaching.
Right. And you are not afraid to do the self-evaluation, to do the work, David. You take us back into a conversation that you were able to have, an interview that you were able to have back in 1996, and what that did for you. What was that like for you to reflect on that, and how you were able to realize that the things that you picked up on and remembered from that interview were the very things that you were told that you didn't believe at the time were things that you were missing in your life?
Oh, my gosh. We're talking about my interview with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation. And in our brand new book, Focus, I go back into that story again because, Cyrus, here was a guy that I had the utmost of respect for. And during a commercial break, he said to me, you're referring a lot to the power of affirmations. And I said, yes. And he said, what is the affirmation that you've said the most? And has it come through for you? And Cyrus, he stopped me in my tracks because the answer I gave him was the affirmation that I had been saying for 25 years is that I am David Essel, a child of God, happy, healthy, and sober today. And I, even during that interview, of course, I never drank when I worked, but outside of my working hours, I was an alcoholic. So at the end of that interview, Maharishi, who was so kind and so soft-spoken with me, he never put me against the wall, but I know he knew what he did. And that question, have your affirmations worked? That's what shattered my whole existence, Cyrus. That's what woke me up because the answer was no. I had been using an affirmation just like people use the affirmation, I am a millionaire, I'm a size 6 when they're a size 22. We were taught that if you project what you want, preceded by the words I am, this is the famous stuff that we're all been taught, that must become true. So Maharishi exposed the lie that I have been telling myself, and from 1996 to today, we've been on a campaign to teach the truth.
Right. I love the way you worded it in the book, Focus, David. I want to just read it for our audience, for those who have the print edition. It's found on page 71. This is what you wrote. When I realized that the awareness of the addiction was a pathway to freedom, joy, and success, I literally changed my life on that day. And now you've been able to help other people to do that same thing, David, to get on that pathway to freedom. How does that feel to know that you've been used that way?
Oh, my gosh, it's probably one of the most gratifying things that you can think of. You know, when we get, and it's probably on a weekly, if not weekly, and every other week basis, you know, we receive an email from someone that I worked with 10, 15, 20 years ago. As a matter of fact, there's a woman in Seattle, Angela, that I write about in the book, where I helped her more than double her income in 90 days. This is probably 10, 15 years ago. And, you know, she came back to me just last week on Facebook and posted this beautiful endorsement from our work that long ago. So, I mean, I am just so grateful for the gifts that I've been given, but not just the gifts, because the awareness must be followed with hard work, Cyrus, or the gifts are a waste of time. You know, and that's one of the things we write about in Focus. You know, not only do you have to get focused and choose one goal at a time, but you've got to be willing to walk through walls. And if it's a big goal, there's probably going to be quite a few walls we have to walk through.
For sure. For sure. And you kind of walk us through that, through the keys that you give us in the book. We're going to talk more about that. David, I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. I'm excited to welcome back to our program today best-selling author and motivational speaker David Essel. We're talking to him about his new book, Focus, Slay Your Goals, The Proven Guide to Huge Success, A Powerful Attitude, and Profound Love. Now, people might be surprised about that part of the subtitle, David, about the huge success. They may get that. A powerful attitude, they might get that. But a profound love. Love of self is one of the things that definitely comes across in your work, and I think it's one of the things that we would all agree on, that we have to be willing to know ourselves and love ourselves before we can be of any, type of assistance or benefit to others. How difficult has that part been for you, David, to find love for yourself, even in spite of the challenges you've had?
Well, here's the thing that's just going to blow some people's minds. You know, when I was struggling with my addictions, I was teaching courses on self-love, and I would stand in front of the audience and say, this is what you need to do to love yourself. But I wasn't loving myself. I mean, I didn't tell the audience I was an alcoholic. But the truth was then, and it is right now, profound love is a hell of a lot harder than we think it is. Again, Cyrus, my industry, the industry that we're talking about, the world of personal growth, it's unfortunately filled with so many illusionary statements, that you say the words that I love myself and I am this and I am that. But if you look in the mirror, right now we know that 70% of the United States of America, the people in the United States of America, struggle either with being overweight or obese. Now, can you love yourself? Can you truly look in the mirror if you're overweight or obese and say, I am practicing profound self-love? And the answer is yes, if you're doing these two things. If you're eating an extremely clean diet, free of junk food, and you're exercising 5 days a week, you can be obese or overweight and stand in the mirror and say, you know what, damn it, I love myself, and that is true. But if you fall into those categories of overweight or obese, and you're talking about how much you love yourself, but you're not eating clean and you're not exercising, then that is not an example of profound self-love. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And so it really goes back to what you mentioned earlier, right, David, about in 1996, being honest with yourself, right?
Yeah, this is the thing. When we focus and we follow the steps that we give in the book, we are going to get rid of justification, rationalization, and denial. We're going to stand in that mirror, whether we're talking about our financial situation. If you're always financially stressed, that means you're making poor decisions. You are not fully in love with yourself. If you surround yourself with people that gossip or that put others down, or maybe you're a gossiper or you put other people down and feel strong about yourself, Cyrus, that's not self-love. You know,
right.
if you're in a relationship and the person is constantly putting you down emotionally and or physically, staying in that relationship is not a sign of self-love. So, you know, in the book we give a ton of different examples of what profound self-love looks like and then what profound love with another looks like. And there's a lot of people that we've already gotten the feedback, oh, my Lord, I had no idea that this is what profound love is.
Right, for sure. And I think that goes to the work that's involved in this, David, for sure. I want to talk about that aspect of the book because as you have been able to do with the previous book that we discussed, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life, you know, there is work involved. People aren't always willing to do that work personally. They'd like to pay someone to tell them what has to be done and think that's going to be the fix. Do you think that really is the key to the success stories you've heard about, is that they're not afraid to identify, to focus on these areas, and then to do the work to be able to live in line with that focus?
Yes, that's exactly what needs to happen. You know, in 1997, I was working with a counselor because I was struggling in an intimate relationship that I had been in for a number of years. And about 4 weeks into the work with this counselor, and, you know, she loved it. She goes, you know, there's nothing better than working with a counselor, David, like yourself, because I know you're not going to shy away from anything I said. And I go, absolutely, I won't. And then she looked at me and she smiled, Cyrus, and she said, you by far are the most codependent man in an intimate relationship I have ever met.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what do you mean a codependent man? I'm an independent entrepreneur, best-selling author, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, you're not. And then she went to show me the truth that I chose women that needed to be saved so that I could feel like a white knight. I stayed in relationships much past their expiration date. When I would run and when I'd have a problem in my intimate relationship, and this is just being brutally honest, I would argue with my partner at the time. If that didn't work, I would go out and have an affair. If that didn't work, I would just go ahead and drink away my thoughts and worries and anger at this person. In other words, I was codependent. I wasn't able to sit in the fire of an intimate relationship and work through it, Cyrus. So, you know, when I share this information being very humble, it was 1 year of work with that counselor for me to be able to shatter my codependent tendencies in relationships. And as we say in the book, you know, codependency is the largest addiction in the world, and so many people are codependent in love, and we don't even realize it.
Right, for sure. And a book like this, I think, helps them in that regard. David, kind of going back to the subtitle that I mentioned earlier, because I think, you know, a lot of times we, just like the conversation you had back in 1996, right? I mean, when the woman said to you the things that you remember, from this conversation are the things that you're lacking, that it takes that acknowledgement. And also, wouldn't you agree, David, it takes you being open to it?
Yeah, Cyrus, that's funny. You know, after the interview with Maharishi, when one of his, top aides flew to Florida and at a conference I was speaking at, she's the one that pulled me aside and said, hey, Maharishi sent me down here, and he wanted me to ask you the question of what do you remember, from the interview. And I was battling myself. I couldn't remember anything. The guy was so deep, I couldn't pick one thing, and I finally just blurted out, he was filled with such childlike joy. And then she said, David, this may not sound really great what I'm going to say next, but the reason that you only remember his joy is because you are lacking joy in your life. And I got really defensive, Cyrus. I'm there. You don't understand. I live on the beach. I drive a Mercedes, blah, blah, blah. I'm defending myself because I didn't want to admit that my addictions had blasted any amount of joy that I could have on a regular basis out of my life. So here I am once again getting humble, and 3 weeks after the woman exposed me like that, and I disagreed with her at the time, but 3 weeks later on a Tuesday afternoon, I woke up with an incredible hangover from a 4-day binge, and I realized that she was right. I had no joy. And that awareness for everyone listening right now, when we can get that humble and we can say, I do not profoundly love myself, I'm not in a profound loving relationship, whatever it might be with money or weight, that's step one. Then we got to get focused and really do the work to change our lives.
Yeah, for sure. And the work is not always easy. And as you were able to experience, David, that you share in the book Focus, is that it's difficult because being honest with ourselves sometimes is one of the most difficult things. But can you talk about the freedom of it? Freedom is something you write about throughout this book. Talk to us about the freedom that you've experienced and the freedom that you've been able to help other people experience by getting them to focus.
Well, when we can finally admit that we're going to stop the justification and the rationalization and the denial, and we're going to say that, I'm a food addict or an alcoholic or I'm a spending addict or I'm outrageously judgmental. There's a freedom that follows that is so profound. When I was traveling the world and drinking, I would get done with a lecture and immediately I'd go to a bar, I'd go to a club, I'd go to my room at a hotel and order a bottle of wine. The minute I was done, I had to have some alcohol to relax and to chill out. The freedom now at the end of no matter how tough my day is, no matter how terrible flights are or whatever, it never even strikes me that it would be a great idea to have a drink. That's freedom. And it's the same thing when people struggle with food, is that when they do the work and they focus and they follow the steps in the book and they no longer are dependent in the evening, especially on food or on buying things to feel better or on putting someone else down to feel better. Cyrus, the freedom is amazing. Like, we can actually relax in life and start to enjoy ourselves and the people around us at a much deeper level when we focus on our biggest challenge and decide to work through it.
Yeah. And you even talk about in the book about having a routine. I saw something recently on Instagram, David, and it really it was such a powerful thing to me. And I shared it with a good friend of mine because I think it's one of those things that we do sometimes subconsciously. The person was saying that when you start your day off, hitting a snooze button, when you have dedicated a certain time that you want to start your day, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. Because your very first thing you're doing in that day is delaying what you say you want to do. You talk about in the book about having a routine. How important has that been for you to have a routine, to be able to have that time, to be able to focus, to kind of think about where you are, who you are, and what you want to do?
Yeah, we have a morning routine in the book that we describe and an evening routine. And I think if someone picked up the book and said, I'm going to make one change, Cyrus, I would say that one change should be the morning routine. Get up early in the morning, even maybe it's 20, 30 minutes earlier. Don't rush. Focus on what you're grateful for. Focus on what's the one major task you want to accomplish today. Light a candle, have your coffee, tea, juice. Stare out the window at nature. Throw birdseed in your backyard to attract more animals into your life and the beauty of nature. When we start like that, instead of rushing, you said hit the snooze button. Hit the snooze button, rush to wake up the kids, rush to get your partner out of bed, rush. We're starting the day in the worst way possible. If we get up, and one of my clients that I started working with about 3 weeks ago, she's going through the book right now, and she said of everything we've covered just in the first 3 weeks of working together, that having that morning routine has made the biggest impact and decreased the stress in her life dramatically. How we start the day sets the tone for what we're going to accomplish.
Right. The other thing that you talk about in dealing with that routine, and I think this is something I have struggled with, David, and I know our audience probably can relate to this, we don't always think to celebrate the little things. We focus so much on the big things. You talk about in that part about the morning routine, especially about, writing down something that you did the day before well. How important has that been for you to acknowledge those little things?
Well, it's funny because I do it every morning, and I have abbreviations for what I've done well. Cyrus, gratitude, a self-gratitude, appreciating the fact that you got up early in the morning and you did your morning ritual that we talk about in Focus. being grateful that while in the afternoon everyone was eating donuts because a salesman came in and filled the room with donuts, that you chose not to. We write that down. Mm-hmm. Going to the gym when you'd rather not, or walking in your neighborhood when it's raining, we write that down. Your kids acted out, and instead of, overly bearing coming down on them, is that you found a medium, a moderate view, a moderate opportunity to discipline them. We'd write that down. You can imagine that some clients that we work with, at the end of a day, or when they start the next day and they reflect back to what went well, they can have anywhere from 2 to 20 things they're grateful for the day before. And imagine, Cyrus, how that is a springboard now for what you're going to do today when you're reflecting back with a positive attitude about what you did yesterday. It's magical.
Yeah, I think that is it. I think that is the thing. So what is your hope, David, for people who are just discovering the book Focus and really thinking about the things that we're discussing, which is, just really the tip of the iceberg to kind of whet their appetites of what the book kind of gives. What is your hope that this book does for those who pick it up and read it?
Well, number one, I want people to have what you just used, probably one of my favorite words. Cyrus, I want people to have hope. That if they've struggled like I struggled for 25 years with an addiction, that heck, you know what? I tell people, if I can break an addiction, you can too. 25 years, there wasn't a day, that I wasn't immersed in alcohol and for a long period of time, cocaine. So, number one is hope. Number two is a plan. So you can have hope, but if you don't have a written, focused plan on what you're going to do, that awareness and that hope is going to be very short-lived. And then number three is I want them to have that profound self-love, the huge success, and the great attitude. And following what we're going to do with the book, when people actually take it step by step, they will have hope, they will see change, they will be successful. That is the ultimate wish of every person, for me, who picks up the book. I want them to have those three big things.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to get that and so much more, David. It's a great book, another great conversation with you, so I really appreciate that. Again, everyone, best-selling author and motivational speaker David Essel has been our guest. Focus is the title of his new book, Slay Your Goals, The Proven Guide to Huge Success, A Powerful Attitude, and Profound Love. It's available through our friends at Amazon.com. You all can get it there. And, David, let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you?
Oh, Cyrus, that would be great. I'd love to have your audience come and join us at talkdavid.com, TALKDavid.com, really easy to remember. And what we'd like to do, too, is we'd like to offer all of your listeners that are ready to change, to get focused, go and read about the book. And if you're really serious, send us an email through the website, talkdavid.com, and my team will set up a free 15-minute phone counseling session with any of your listeners that want to change, and we'll help give them a jumpstart session, Cyrus, so they can create the life they've wanted. That's all at talkdavid.com.
Well, okay, so make sure you'll take advantage of that again, talkdavid.com. David, thank you so much again for the time. Congratulations on the new book, and definitely looking forward to our next conversation together.
Oh, that sounds great, Cyrus. You have a beautiful day.
You do the same thing. Thank you so much. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.